Thank you very much, Ms. Kenny. So I'd like to call the November 21st, 2022 regular council meeting to order and begin by acknowledging that we're on the land that's traditional unceded of the Katzie, Kwantlen, Matsqui, and Semiahmoo First Nations. For any members of the public who is in attendance watching these proceedings, welcome. Just a friendly reminder to keep your mics on mute and your cameras off while you're in attendance. Now, before we adopt the agenda, I'll just ask if anybody has any additions or changes they would like to make to the agenda. So seeing that no one is proposing a change to the agenda, I recommend that the November 21st regular council meeting agenda be adopted as circulated. Who would like to move that? Councillor Wallace, seconded by Councillor James. Is there any discussion? Seeing there's no discussion, I'll call the question. All in favor? And is there anybody opposed? It's unanimous. So at this time, we'll be entering a committee of the whole. So a committee of the whole provides council the opportunity to hear input from members of the public and allows council a greater opportunity to speak to and debate specific agenda items. So the recommendation is that council commence the committee of the whole. I'll need someone to move that. Councillor Mack, seconded by Councillor White. Is there any discussion on that? Seeing no discussion, I'll call the question. All in favor? Is there anybody opposed? It's unanimous. So we are now in the committee of the whole. The first matter of business in the committee of the whole is Development Variance Application DVP 01-22. The address is 19907 53 Avenue for a two-story duplex with a 1.5 meter interior lot line setback. Mr. Johansson, I believe he has some comments that he'd like to make. So please go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, and good afternoon, Mayor and Council. The subject property is zoned RM1, multiple residential low density, which permits duplexes and townhomes. This zone, as set out in the zoning bylaw, includes specific regulations for duplexes, including a one-story height limit and a minimum 3-meter interior lot line setback. The applicant is seeking to vary the height and the setback requirements of the RM1 zone to permit construction of a 2-story duplex with an interior lot line setback of 1.5 meters. The details and rationale for the proposed variances are in the staff report, and the applicant is in attendance and can speak to their proposal. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll just ask at this time if we have the applicants that are here. I believe they have a presentation, so please feel free to come on camera and come off mute and present your application, and maybe just a brief introduction so we know who you are. And maybe through to staff, do we have Ms. Kenny perhaps is the applicant here?
We have a number of individuals in attendance. My understanding is one of them is going to present for this application, and maybe I should defer to Mr. Johansson.
Thank you.
Yes, this is Amandeep Seiko.
Hi there.
Yeah, our designer, he should be there. He have the presentation ready. He gonna present it.
I just need somebody to make me an admin so I can show my
he's
screen.
there, so we need to make him admin so that he can share his screen.
That should be possible. Ms. Kenny, is there something I should be doing to enable this?
Mr. Mayor, maybe just check next to his name, but I'm a co-host and I don't see anything that says that we have to give him any.
I'll try and share my screen on here. Let's see.
Yeah, I believe you should be free to share your screen. There's no restrictions in this meeting. Perfect.
Okay, great. So there we go. That's Atmosphere Development Corporation. I am Luis Rosano Cruz, the Vice President of the corporation. My father is Luis Alberto, and there's our contact information, our website, emails, and telephone. According to the agent authorization form for the development variance permit, Luis Cruz, that's my father and I, we were to allow basically a 2-story duplex with a 1.5 meter interior lot line setback at that civic address. That's 19907 53 Avenue in Langley. And so here's the development application for the BVP 01-22. And as you can see, the development variance permit is checked off for the BVP. And here we have the development submission checklist with item number 4 for development variance permit. And basically it was checked off at the top there, as you can see in the slideshow provided. And so that's for the RM1 zone. So a little bit about the RM1 zone. Duplex requirements include a 1-story height limit and a minimum interior setback of 3 meters. Then the applicant has applied to vary these provisions to add an additional story and reduce the interior setback by 1.5 meters to develop a 2-story duplex with a 1.5 meter interior setback. So as you can see here, here's my site plan. The section that is in red on the site plan happens to be the northerly side of the property, which is the side elevation. Down at the 53rd Avenue here, we have basically the flanking street. And over here at the 199th Street, we have the westerly side. And basically the rear is on the east. So as you can see, according to section 642 of the sides, where an average building depth is equal or less than 18 meters. In this case, this building is 15.24, as you can see there. So it's less than the 18 meters. So what is applicable is either 10% of the average lot width or 1.5 meters, whichever is greater. And so in this case, the 1.5 will prevail. And as you can see, this is also demonstrated here in this next slide, where we have the 3 meters on the right and 1.6, which is being applied for. But of course, the 1.5 is what is applicable or allowable. And on the left, we have the 3, and you can see where the shaded areas here, that is where the encroachment actually is entailing. So that's section 642, subsection 1 for sides for principal structure. Now, if you look at unit 1 and 2, here we have the exercise room, which is encroaching in the basement. This is the basement at 986.42 square feet. Now, unit 2 is no different than unit 1, but as you notice, there's not much of an encroachment that is impacting the dorms at this stage because it's in the basement, and all that's really encroaching is the bathrooms there, the 3-piece bathrooms. So so that has to do with the basement encroachment. Now on the main floor, we have an encroachment basically from the study room, the bathroom, and the salsa kitchen in both units 1 and 2. And so this is somewhat much more noticeable than the basement. Main floor is at the same 986.42 square feet. Now, if we look at the top floor, the 4 bedrooms unit, that is unit 1 has 1, 2, 3, 4 bedrooms, and unit 2 also has the same. Now, on the northerly side, that is where the encroachment is most noticeable and forced. That's forced square foot area. That means that the area cannot produce the bedroom sizes that we need. We have right now a minimum of 10 by 11. And so the top floor 4 bedrooms are encroaching, as you can see. So now if you look here, it's going to draw your attention to the cross section. Basically, We have the roof level, roof ridge, and the mid roof on unit 1 and 2. Here's a basic summary of it, where the mid roof is at 8.46 meters and the roof ridge is at 10.76 meters. That mid roof is reaching a level of 16.64 meters and the roof ridge is at 18.94 meters. So what that means is that in the section 643, basically subsection 1 in that talks about height for duplex side by side, the maximum story is 1.5, whereas the roof ridge is at 7.3 meters and the mid room is at 4.8 meters. In subsection 2, the height for duplex vertical and dwelling single family maximum stories is 2.5. The roof ridge is at 9.5, mid roof is at 8 meters. So as you can see, the mid roof that we're proposing is 8.46. So that's over the 8 meters that's allowable in subsection 2, subsection C. So what that means is that we have to vary that difference and we have to apply for that variation. So now here, as you see in unit 1 and 2, that's the front elevation on the westerly side. And unit 1, which is the left, which is basically the encroachment area, I didn't have enough time to basically identify the metrics on that, but ideally you should see where I have noticed showing you on the site plan and the floor plans where that encroachment is really impactful the most. And on the right elevation, the same here. And there we have units 1 and 2 for the rear, which is the easterly side at the back of the lot. So again, thank you so much with Anderson Development Corporation and Mr. Luis Rosano Cruz.
Thank you very much for the presentation. I may get you to stop sharing your screen.
Yeah.
Thank you. So at this time, I'm going to ask Ms. Kenny if we've received any correspondence in respect to this particular development variance permit.
Yes, Mayor Pahal, we've received 2 pieces of correspondence with respect to this development permit, and it has been circulated to council ahead of the meeting.
Thank you. So now I will ask if there is anybody in attendance at this meeting, a member of the public who wishes to speak on development variance permit DVP 01-22. If you do wish to speak, I ask that you use the raise your hand function. So if you're on Zoom, that's reactions, raise your hand. And then we'll acknowledge you, and then you can give us the benefit of your comments.
Sorry, I didn't find the raise my hand function. I do have some comments.
I guess, Ms. Kenny, would it be good to get the name and do we need the address?
Mayor Pahal, we just need the street name that they live on and their name for the record.
So if you could please do that.
Sorry for that. Can I speak right now?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Fred, and I'm the property right adjacent to the development property to the north. The street address is 5318 199 Street, Langley, City of Langley. So basically, I'm the property right north to the property that's asking for permission for redevelopment. So is this information good enough for the record?
Yes, if that is your comments.
Oh no, I'm just stating who I am.
Yes.
Identify myself, and I do have some comments. I'm the landlord, so so I reviewed the document. So first question through the presentation, I see there is a mid roof height that's not in compliance with the city limit right now. Am I right?
So I will just ask to the applicant if they can comment on that. But it is yes, which is why they're asking for the development variance for height.
Yeah, that is correct.
Okay. Okay, so that's sorry. Sorry. First, it's thanks for providing me the opportunity to provide my comment here, our honorable council and mayor. First time to see everyone here. I'm just a general public and landlord, obviously, to own that parcel. And I have no technical background or any ideas about the city bylaw permission process. So it's in my understanding that the applicant is going through proper a city bylaw process and city council is reviewing into this application in accordance with the bylaw limit. Am I right?
I will direct this to Mr. Johansson, who can provide some context around this.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through to the resident on in the hearing here. So right now the property is zoned RM1, and that only allows a one-story duplex. So the applicant is seeking to get a variance for a two-story duplex. So that's in the RM zone and the city zoning bylaw. There's a provision there that limits duplexes to one story. So the applicant is seeking to construct a two-story duplex. So therefore they require a variance to be approved for that from council.
Thank you, Mr. Johansson. Fred, does that answer your question?
Yes. Thanks for explaining. Thanks for explaining to me, Mr. Crow. So I'll leave this to the further city approval process. I believe city has the expertise in this. So and that land is it's whatever the landowner want to do with it. It's their land. I respect that. So I'm the landlord for that land right to north, which means my property is right adjacent to the construction zone, the future construction zone for that duplex. Currently, I'm not living on site. However, I rent it out to a tenant family that's living on site right now. So actually, I'm here more for their welfare rather than me, because I'm concerned about the impact about the future construction to their daily life. So first of all, I have seen construction site. So we understand construction business is it will be a mess from time to time. What I'm concerned is the impact to my tenant. Number one, noise, construction noise, and number two, because they have children living in my house there too. So I'm concerned about any potential safety concern to the children, as well as for the tenant family, that might caused by the development. And third, any a potential a threat. I'm sorry, not a threat, and a potential impact that might damage my property and during the development, and what's the mitigation?
Thank you. Fred, I wanted to ask if you had any further questions or comments, and we will get the applicant to provide some context if possible today, but I wanted to see if you had any further comments or questions.
That's all my comment. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much. And again, I'll give the applicant and our staff an opportunity to respond, but I just wanted to check first if there was any other people here in attendance that wished to provide us with comment. And then I'll also check with our staff through Ms. Kenny if there is anybody in attendance that staff can see who wishes to speak.
Mr. Mayor, I do not see anybody raising their hands.
And while I know this isn't a public hearing, I will ask again, just to double check in case I've missed something.
Still no hands raised.
And just a final time, again, I know this is an informal committee of the whole, but just to make certain.
And no hands are raised.
Thank you very much. So at this time, I'll ask the applicant if they would like to respond to the questions received at the committee of the whole. And I'll be giving council an opportunity as well to comment. But first, I'd like to hear from the applicant, or if staff had some context after that.
This is Amadeep Sekhon. You want me to say something?
Yes, I believe if you had any comments you'd like to provide to Fred, this would be a good opportunity.
Yes, you don't have to worry about anything, Fred. Good evening. Sorry to, uh, never seen you, but anyways, during the construction, I'm pretty sure we're gonna have a big fence around the construction area, and there gonna be signs of construction, and I'll make sure nobody got disturbed in the house. I'm pretty sure there is lots of people living in that area. We'll make sure the work for the construction is done only Monday to Friday, between work hours, no weekend works, so that nobody get disturbed. But still, if there is any issues, you can contact me anytime. I can give you my phone number, and we can resolve any issues during the construction, and we'll make 100% sure that there is no damage to your property. And that's all. Thanks.
Thank you very much. I'd also like to ask staff if there was any additional information they'd like to provide.
Yes, through the mayor, just in regards to noise, we do have a noise control bylaw that limits construction to certain hours, Monday to Friday and Saturday. No construction allowed on Sundays. In terms of the safety, fencing would be part of the expectation there. Of course, work on site is according to our city bylaws and also WorkSafe BC. And I would encourage the applicant to communicate with the landlord and the tenants before construction starts, so they have a mutual understanding of what's happening there. And I think it's something that we can also flag as part of our building permit process. And we do have our inspectors that go out there on a regular basis to monitor the site, ensure that things are being done safely. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johansson. And then to the applicant, you could use the chat feature in this Zoom meeting to send a private message to Fred if you would like. So with that, I would like to ask if any member of council has any questions for the applicant. Also be aware that we'll have the opportunity to discuss this in fulsome after the committee of the whole. So is there any questions from council for the applicant? I'm not seeing any questions. So with that, I believe we can move on to the next development variance application. So we are now going to look at development variance application DVP 02-22 25525 209 Street. This is a front and exterior accessory building setback of 1 meter and the provision of 84 parking spaces. For that's what it's about. So I'd invite Mr. Johansson to speak to this development variance application.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Pahal, and good afternoon once again, Mayor and Council. The subject property is zoned RM1, similar to the last one, permitting duplexes and townhomes. This development was completed in 1989, and that was prior to the current zoning bylaws. So according to the bylaw, the required number of parking spaces for this development is actually what was on site when the zoning bylaw was adopted back in 1996 and amended from time to time thereafter. So in plain English, they require 90 spaces. The applicant is seeking a setback variance in order to construct a refuse bin enclosure at the southeast corner of the property. It's about 600 square feet in size, and are looking to locate it within 1 meter from the front and exterior property line. Noting that in the RM1 zone, these lot line setbacks are 7.5 meters. Parking variance is also being sought to enable the location of the refuse bin enclosure on 6 existing parking spaces. And if approved by council and the refuse bin is constructed, that would result in 84 total parking spaces on site, down from the existing 90. So existing details, or sorry, further details and rationale for these variances is in the staff report. And I believe the applicant is in attendance and can speak to their proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johansson. At this time, I would invite the applicant to give us a presentation and provide us with any comments. And I will ask staff
Good.
if we have someone in attendance.
Paul, I believe Leslie Geddes is in attendance. I see her. She might be just having a bit of technical difficulty.
Good afternoon, Mayor Pakal.
Hi there, we
City-
can hear you.
Okay, good. I was just, I'm Leslie Geddes. I am the Senior Property Manager for Kinsman Housing Society. And we operate we oversee operations of the subsidized housing development that we're requesting the development variance permit for. And the reason behind this is definitely because we've experienced a lot of issues with outside dumping and a lot of mess being left around our garbage areas on a long while. And we just recently completed, well, still completing all the final aspects, and the garbage enclosure is one of them, for a $10.3 million capital funded upgrades from BC Housing. And we have we've installed upgraded camera systems to be able to monitor our garbage areas as well. We've, because of the change of garbage regulations, we've had to incorporate cardboard disposal, the different organic disposal and recycling disposal bins onto, which we couldn't have spread around the property. And so they would all have been located in one area at the southeast corner of our property, which backs onto 209th Street and Langley bypass there. So we've had our garbage bins there for quite a while. And in order for us to maintain a more desirable and aesthetically pleasing looking development after all of our upgrades, we would like to be able to enclose those garbage containers into an area where they can all be, properly monitored and not such easily accessible by outside dumpers. So we're going to make sure that there's gates on them that will be for tenants use only. And it will eliminate the readily available space for people to drop their mattresses off, as we do manage a lot of those every month. And it'll help the tenants to be able to feel like it's a more desirable place to live as well. And that's our ultimate, to make more place for our families, even though they don't feel like they're living in subsidized housing. When it looks like that, it sometimes does. So we would make a better place, realizing that we will be taking some parking spaces away. However, we have realigned our parking recently with new upgraded parking garages, and all our tenants, there's adequate space for every one of our tenants to have their own parking space. And there are 17 additional visitor parking spaces around our development. Some of those are along the strip where we do have the garbage, so they've not been used for quite some time, as we had to have those garbage containers located in those spaces. So we are requesting that we have the approval to have those 6 spaces used for a garbage enclosure to be constructed there. And also we've, in the location, we have a space behind where we propose to have the building up. Is along the 209th Avenue there. And we don't want to have a large space in there for people to be able to, of course, drop off from outside. And so we've kind of put it up as far as we can to the fence to try and eliminate that space. So it's an easier area to keep clean and not so inviting for outside dumpers as well. That's the reason why we're asking to have it as back as far as possible, and to accommodate the amount of required bins that we've got to have there now.
Thank you very much for that presentation.
And I believe that's all. If you have any questions, I'm happy to thank you.
Thank you very much. At this time, I'm going to ask Ms. Kenny if we've received any correspondence regarding this development variance permit.
Thank you, Mayor Hall. We received 2 pieces of correspondence with respect to this development application, and it was forwarded to council prior to this meeting.
Thank you very much. I'd like to ask if there's any members of the public in attendance right now that wish to speak, to use the raise your hand function. So that's in reactions in Zoom. And then we will acknowledge you and you can give us your comments. Ms. Kenny, do you see anybody in attendance who wishes to speak?
I see no raised hands at this time.
Well, just ask once more.
No raised hands
Third and final time.
and no raised hands.
And is there anybody who can't use the raise hand function that wishes to speak? Please feel free to unmute and give us your comments. So not hearing any comments from public in attendance, I'd like to ask council if they had any specific questions for the applicant, knowing again that we can discuss the merits of this proposal further in the agenda today. Yes, Councillor Mack.
I'm not sure if this is the right way to say it, but through the mayor to the resident, Leslie, and this might be a redundancy, but I just wanted to ask to clarify for some of the residents who did message us with their concerns. To be clear, you already have dumpsters outside and you're already having an issue with people coming and dumping and leaving their garbage. And this is basically to mitigate that as well as to try to stop animals from being able to gain access to the to the garbage. That's my question.
Thank you, Councillor Mack, and please feel free to respond.
Do you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Councillor Mack, we did have quite an issue with rats at the complex there. So we were able to take care of it. It does seem to be well, we're hoping it's completely resolved. We don't see them anymore. So but that was a struggle. So this is we would like to have it be possible and have it all in one area so that if those issues do arise again, or any issues of any kind of pest outside dumpers, then it's all solely in one area, easier to address and to manage. That's definitely one of our reasons behind it. Yes.
Thank you. So I can ask if there's any further follow-up questions from Councillor Mack.
Thank you, and through the mayor to Leslie. Thank you for your clarification. And you mentioned gates that are going to be on the enclosure. Will they be will they be locked and your tenants will be given keys? And that's my final question.
Thank you. And Leslie, please feel free to respond.
Yes, thank you. Yes, we will have chain link gates along the front of the building, of course, for the garbage disposal companies to be able to open them up and access those bins to be able to tip them. And those will not be accessible for tenants because there's no need for them to take large pieces of garbage in there. They're supposed to remove them from the property. However, there will be a pedestrian type gate that the tenants will have a key access to. And they'll be able to walk in at any time, day or night, to be able to put their garbage and use the recycling or whatever bins that they need to access in there.
Thank you very much. Did any other member of council have a question? I am not seeing any questions from any other member of council. So thank you very much. You can feel free as the applicant to go off camera and mute yourself. So as there's no other matters to discuss in the committee of the whole, I would like to propose that council rise and report. I'll lead someone to move that motion. Councillor Albrecht and Councillor Mack, all in favor? Any opposed? It's unanimous. So now we are in the adoption of the minutes. We have a few minutes here as presented in the agenda. So what we could do is move it under consent. So if everybody is okay with that, I will move that the minutes of the following meetings be approved through consent. The regular council meeting held on October 24th, 2022, and the inaugural council meeting held on November 7th, 2022. So that's moved by Councillor Albrecht and seconded by Councillor Wallace. Is there any discussion? So I will ask for a vote on the consent to move these two things. All in favor? Any opposed? It's unanimous. I just wanted to check with Ms. Kenny if that was done appropriately.
Yes, Mayor Pahal, you can certainly have unanimous consent to consider adoption of the minutes in one vote. So that was correct.
Thank you very much. So now we are in business arising from the Committee of the Whole. So we're going to start with Development Variance Application DVP 01-22. So there's two recommendations here. That the November 7th, 2022 report entitled Development Variance Permit Application DVP 01-22. The address is 19907 53A Avenue be received for information, and that council approve Development Variance Permit Application DVP 01-22 to allow a height of 2 stories and an interior lot line setback of 1.5 meters. Would anybody like to move those recommendations? We have Councillor White, and it was seconded by Councillor Mack. At this time, I'll ask if there's a council who has questions. So we'll start with Councillor Albrecht.
Thank you, Mayor Pahal, and through the mayor to staff. I just want to ask about it meeting or the duplex zone meeting the OCP for the future development and the concept for that particular area. I know it's growing fast, and also I'd like to make note of parking for trades and making sure that it's not going to be interrupting the flow of the residents to and from their properties on a regular or daily basis. So if staff could relay that, that would be awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, Thank you, Councillor Albrecht. And I'll ask Mr. Johansson if he could speak.
Yes, through to the mayor to Councillor Albrecht. This area in the OCP is designated low-rise residential, which does allow for apartment development up to 6 stories. In this case, the property is zoned RM1, which allows duplex development as of right. So they're able to come in and apply for a building permit for a duplex. In this case, they're seeking those variances in order to look at a duplex that is of a more modern approach in terms of being 2 stories rather than 1. This all being said, this area has not experienced any redevelopment activity as of yet. It is designated for higher density apartments, and we do expect that to happen at some time down the road. But we're not seeing any definitive activity in this area relative to the east of 200 Street or to the north of towards Bryden. We also did discuss this internally with our staff team and determined that there are a number of property assembly permutations in this area that would allow for the viable redevelopment of this area. If this one property went ahead as a duplex. Time will tell. Eventually, there may be an application including this property for an apartment building in the future, but I don't think at this point it would encumber the OCP vision. And also with the trades parking, we will review that as part of the building permit should council approve the variance permit. I think in this case, the trades should be able to park on site. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Albrecht, did you have any follow-up?
No, I just wanted to thank staff for that and giving that context, and I believe we need to look at various forms of housing in order to meet our housing needs. So something like this is a little bit different than what we've passed in the previous, especially the condos in that particular area. So it's nice to have a bit more variety and different options for people trying to get into the housing market. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Albrecht. Did any other member of council have a question or comment? I'm not seeing that. So I have a question as well to staff. My question is, while we normally allow secondary suites, we don't, I believe, allow secondary suites in this context at the moment. As it stands, if this is built, what measures would you have in place to ensure a year in that the basement doesn't get turned into an illegal suite, as it does have its own separate entrance, a shower, kitchen area?
Yes, through to the mayor. First off, the zoning doesn't allow secondary suites in this zone, and should this variance be approved by council, the building permit drawings that are submitted to the city will be reviewed very carefully for obviously all the building code things, but also to make sure it's compliant with our zoning. So therefore, no secondary suites allowed, and our plan checkers will make sure that there's no characteristics or elements in that basement that would indicate that it would be used for a suite. We will also be inspecting the property through the construction process, including looking at final occupancy, and we'll be making sure there's no suites in these two units. And actually, one last item. Just looking at my notes here, we can also put a property, a covenant on title that prohibits suites as an additional measure. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. And so you'll be looking at all those options.
That's
again.
correct. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
And in fact, we probably will pursue a covenant on title just to make sure that that's there.
Thank you very much, Mr. Johansson. So with that, I will ask if I'll call the question actually, because we're done the discussion. So all in favor of development variance application DVP 0122? It's unanimous. It looks like nobody's opposed. Thank you. So now we'll go to development variance permit DVP 0222. So that's on 5525 209 Street, front and exterior accessory building setback of 1 meter and the provision of 84 parking spaces. So there are two recommendations: that the November 7th, 2022 report entitled Development Variance Permit Application DVP 02-22 5525 209 Street be received for information, and that council approve development variance permit application DVP 02-22 to allow front and exterior accessory building setbacks of 1 meters and the provision of 84 parking spaces. Is there a mover? It is moved by Councillor James and seconded by Councillor White, I think. So now we'll move on to discussion. Councillor James.
Thank you, Mayor Pahal. I just have a comment more than a question. I just find it quite responsible that this came through the process that it has, for the very reason that they could have left it exactly how it was, and it might have been undetected for a long time. I'm speaking in particular with the garbage situation. So I strongly in support of this, simply because I think that was very responsible of them. So I want to thank the people who brought this forward to our attention. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor James. Any other member of council have a comment? Seeing that there is no comments, I'll call the question. All in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you. So now we're moving on to the mayor's report. And I was remiss because I did not do introductions. So I would like to introduce our council. We have Councillor, I'm just reading on my screen right now, Councillor Terry James, Councillor Leith White, Councillor Delaney Mack, Councillor Rosemary Wallace, and Councillor Paul Albrecht. Councillor Mike Solium sends his regrets. And for staff, we have Francis Chung, who is our Chief Administrative Officer. I believe we have Darren Light, who is our Director of Corporate Services, Carl Johansson, Director of Development Services, Rick Baumhoff, who's back from holidays, who's our Director of Engineering, Parks and the Environment. Welcome back. Kim Hilton, Director of Recreation, Culture and Community Services. Fire Chief Scott Kennedy, Corporate Officer Kelly Kenny, and Beckett Zeller, who's the Manager of Human Resources. So with that, I would also like to inform folks that we will have a regular council meeting on December 5th and another regular council meeting on December 12th. It may be scheduled at 4 o'clock pending the outcome of a motion later on in this agenda. So with that, we are going to move on to bylaws. So we have bylaw 3221, zoning amendment number 190, RZ04-22, and development permit number DP 07-22. First and second reading of a bylaw to rezone the property located at 5302 200th Street, 211, 221, 231, 53rd Avenue, 230, 53A Avenue from RS1 Single Family Residential Zone to CD 86 Comprehensive Development Zone to accommodate a 6-story, 84-unit apartment development. Mr. Johansson, did you have any comments you'd like to provide us?
Thank you, Mayor Pahal. As you noted, the subject properties are zoned single-family residential, but they're designated low-rise residential in the OCP. And this land use allows for multifamily apartment development up to a maximum height of 6 stories and a maximum density of 2.1 floor area ratio, or FAR. The density of the proposed development complies with the OCP, but it exceeds the typical zone that's used for apartments in the city. So a comprehensive development zone, or CD zone, is being proposed to accommodate the applicant's proposed rezoning. The applicant's also proposing variances for visitor parking and accessible parking stall length, as well as reduced resident parking. And further details and rationale for these variances and parking reduction is included in the report. Thank you.
Thank you. And just some context, as this is our first meeting of substance, I would say, though I think the inaugural was great. If you do have questions, this would be a great opportunity to bring it to staff. Staff can provide that to the applicant, which the applicant may address at the public hearing. So again, if you have any questions about the proposed rezoning, this is a good opportunity to express those so we can have the information for the public hearing and then to help us if it moves forward today through to third reading. So with that, I'm going to say the following recommendation and see if we can get a mover and a seconder, that the bylaw cited as zoning bylaw 1996, number 2100, amendment number 190-2022, number 3221 be read a first and second time. I'll ask for a mover. If we have that, Councillor Mack, seconded by Councillor Albrecht. It's up for discussion. Is there any Councillor Mack and then Councillor Albrecht, and then after that we'll go to Councillor White. So Councillor Mack, please go ahead.
I'm not sure who would be best to address this question to, maybe through the mayor to staff. This building is going to have reduced parking. Given that part of it is on 200, does the remaining surrounding area have the ability to accommodate residents should the new parking estimations not be sufficient? That's my question.
Thank you, Councillor Mack, and through to Mr. Johansson. And if you don't have the answer now, you can obviously provide that to us at a later date as well.
Yes, thank you, through the mayor to Councillor Mack. And yes, this is something that the applicant can speak to if it goes to the public hearing. But I would say generally, resident parking needs to be accommodated on site along with the visitor parking for the application. In this case, the applicant is proposing a reduced visitor parking and resident parking consistent with the draft parking rates that are being considered for the new zoning bylaw in response to the level of transit service that we have now, and also the future arrival of SkyTrain. This area is known as the shoulder area within a 10-minute walk of Fraser Highway Corridor and SkyTrain, and previous applications have requested a reduction in parking, a resident and visitor parking, and this one is also looking to do that, and they'll detail that in their presentation. There is on-street parking available on 53 and 53A in certain areas. But again, these applications are expected to accommodate resident parking on site. I hope that answers your question.
Councillor Mack, did you have a follow-up or did that answer it?
No, I think that answered my question. I did have a second question.
Please go ahead.
So this new build is going to be right across from Nicomeka Elementary. And then while I was campaigning, there were many residents that talked about children in multi-purpose room and just generally there not being enough classrooms for students already. So of course, this being right across the street could have the ability to exacerbate an issue already expressed by residents. So is that something that we've communicated with the school board about, or what, is there any update there?
And again, I'll pass that to Mr. Johansson to comment on.
Yes, through the mayor to Councillor Mack, staff are in regular communication with School District 35 staff regarding population estimates, development, and student generation, and that sort of thing. There's usually a report that comes forward to council as an update for that, and you'll probably be seeing that within the next little while, but I think your question is an important one to highlight, that the school district is definitely, the staff and the board are definitely aware of the increasing population in this area, the growth and the increased student generation. And they have identified the Nicomeka Elementary School in their capital plan for an 8 classroom expansion. I'm not exactly sure when the construction of that's going to start, but I can bring that information back at the public hearing. But they definitely are aware of the need for expansion, and they've put that into their capital plan.
Thank you. Councillor Mack, did you have any further questions?
No, I just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Albrecht.
Thank you, Mayor Pahal. And yeah, I'm looking forward to this moving forward to get feedback from the public and the residents in the area. I too have a concern about the parking, as Councillor Mack has noted. I'd really like to see the developer assign a designated stall on site for each unit. I keep hearing about them having additional charges for parking stalls, so people are offering or shunning the additional expense of paying for on-site parking, and that puts a burden on our streets. So that's something that I want to see corrected and included in the purchase price of a unit, or the rental of a unit, an assigned stall on the property. Whether they use it or not is another issue entirely, but I want to start reducing the impacts on our street parking. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Albrecht. And I'm sure that staff have noted this to share with the applicant to provide us that information during the public hearing. So with that, I will ask Councillor White.
Thank you, Mayor Pahal. My question through the mayor to staff is, are two questions. One has to do with the provision for venting and ducting for portable air conditioners to be installed by the residents. I'm just wondering whether or not there's been any considerations for specifications on those air conditioners, since they'll be vented out onto the balconies, specifications for sound and other efficiencies for those air conditioners.
Thank you. And maybe you could ask the other question as well, and then we'll get staff to respond.
Right. And then my other question pertains to actually whether or not there's any roadwork consideration for enhancements for potential children crossing the street in that particular area to access to the school as well.
Thank you. Mr. Johansson, do you have any comments? And there may be some comments from Mr. Baumhoff as well, I believe.
Yes, through the mayor to Councillor White regarding the provision for the ability to add air conditioning through the venting systems. That's something that we could ask the applicant when they're presenting their proposal at the public hearing. This field is a little bit new in terms of talking a lot more about air conditioning as our climatic conditions are causing these high temperature events and longer summers and that sort of thing. So they will be providing those operable windows to provide for those portable air conditioners. I'm assuming that they are your typical air conditioner that you could pick up at the Home Depot or Rona. I think they could speak a little bit more about the noise. I don't think they're intended to be the window mounted air conditioners. My understanding is that most of them are pretty low noise, and in terms of the venting, shouldn't be too much of a hindrance, but I think we'll get the applicant to talk about that in terms of where those are exactly going to be located, because you don't want to have an exhaust plume going out of one unit and then back into another one right beside it. So
right.
We'll have to look at that. Your other question about roadworks, and Mr. Baumhoff may add a few items to this, but in the report it does identify the preliminary servicing requirements, which will then become servicing requirements if council gives us third reading. They will be required to improve their frontage on 53 and 200, including new sidewalk and multi-use pathway. And there's also a contribution that the application will be making towards a new mid-block crosswalk to enhance access and safety for children crossing 53 to the school.
Awesome.
Thank you. And I think that was a question I was alluding that Mr. Baumhoff could answer, but I think you answered it, Mr. Johansson. Councillor White, is there any further questions you have?
No further questions, Mayor Pahal. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other member of council have a question about this application? So I just have two comments really, and this can be for the applicant. So like Councillor White, I am concerned about the configuration of the air conditioner, because as I read it, it seems like it's basically stick the hose out of the patio door, where in other projects we've seen that they've provisioned actual vent in the wall, and it does help from my experience. So that may be something you'll want to raise for the applicant to talk about during the public hearing. The second thing I'm hoping they could touch on in a bit more detail is the green roof. I know there was a fulsome discussion at the advisory design panel about this, and just ensuring that it would be maintainable, again, considering climate change, and that green roofs do have some considerations such as crows and seeds that get dropped in. So hopefully they'll come prepared to discuss the maintenance schedule, and I believe it's a strata, so in a way that doesn't burden the strata corporation as well in the future. So that is my comments. I'm sure they've been heard. Is there any other questions? I'm not seeing any, so I'm going to call the question on this. So this is first and second reading. then it will go to public hearing. So first and second reading, all in favor. Is there any opposed? It's unanimous. So now we are going to go on to administrative reports. So the first administrative report is the appointment of the external auditor. So that is the recommendation that council appoint BDO Canada LLP as the external financial auditor for the city of Langley for a 5-year term, beginning with the 2022 financial year end that ends on December 31st, 2022 through to the 2026 financial year that ends December 31st, 2026. So I'll look for a mover. Councillor Mack, seconded by Councillor Albrecht. Is there any discussion? Councillor Mack.
I just wanted to acknowledge that, or I guess, yeah, there was only one applicant. BDO was the only applicant, and I did have a question as to whether or not the scarcity of applicants did cause the price to change quite a bit, because it said in the budget that we allocated, I think it was 37,000. However, it ended up being about 65,000 annually.
Thank you. And Mr. Light.
So we did try to actually encourage other audit firms to respond to our RFP. We had some conversations with other firms, and they don't have the capacity to take on our work. So it was very unusual. We've never had this before. Maybe it's just the times that we are in where all organizations are having trouble with staffing, and they just couldn't foresee applying or making a proposal for our work. As far as the pricing, we did have discussions in the prior year that we knew this was coming. And again, I think audit firms are just seeing the pressure of increasing costs on their side too. Maybe we've had a historical low audit fee over the years. It was a 5-year plan. In the past, it's over 5 years. There probably has been an increase in the cost of providing these services.
Thank you, Mr. Light. Councillor Mack, did you have any further follow-up?
No, just thank you, and sorry for I forgot to say through the mayor.
Apology accepted, Councillor Mack. Any further discussion? I'm not seeing any discussion, so I'll call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? It's unanimous. Now we are going to go on to the 2023 schedule of regular council meetings. I'm going to ask this question to Ms. Kenny. Do I need to read all the dates out?
Mayor Pahal, you can ask if people will take it as read or if they would prefer it read out.
So I'll ask the question, and if anybody, how this works, if anybody has a concern, I'll read it out. But if nobody has a concern, then it will be moved as presented. Does anybody want me to read it out? Councillor White, you didn't want me to read it out, correct?
Well, I had a question about one of the months, the meetings on one of the months.
Oh, sure. So what we can do is if we can get this moved and seconded, then we can go into discussion and we can talk about that.
Okay, thank you. Sorry.
All good. So I'm not seeing any issues. So I'm going to move that recommendations for the 2023 schedule of the regular council meetings as presented. Mover, Councillor Albrecht, seconded, Councillor James. Discussion. We'll go to Councillor White.
Paul, Mayor Pahal?
Tori, yes?
Sorry, we also have a second item. Were you going to do that separately, or did you want that moved with the motion?
Oh, I guess I should also, thank you for calling that out. I'll also go that effective January 1st, 2023, the regular meetings of council will be held in the council chamber, Langley City Hall, 20399 Douglas Crescent, Langley, BC at 7 p.m. unless otherwise resolved. So I'll vote again on that. So that's the dates as presented plus that. Are we good? Is that okay, Ms. Kenny?
Yes, we've had approval from the mover and seconder for that, yes.
Perfect. So we'll go over to Councillor White.
Thanks, Mayor Pahal. My question relates to the month of May. The meetings are showing consecutive weeks, and I'm just wondering what the reason for that one is.
Thank you very much. Ms. Kenny.
Thank you, Mayor Pahal, through to Councillor White. So in the report, we talk about the fact that the tax rate bylaw and the financial statements must be adopted before May 15th. And additionally, the 2023 FCM conference is scheduled to be held May 25th to 28th, which is a week earlier than it has been in the past. So this requires council members to be using the Monday, May 29th, which would have been our council meeting date, to be your travel day for returning from the conference. So that necessitated the back-to-back meetings.
Thank you, Ms. Kenny. Councillor White, did you have any further questions or comments?
No, thank you so much for the clarification.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? Not seeing any, I'm going to call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? It's unanimous. Now we are on to new and unfinished business. So it is a motion from myself that the December 5th and December 12th, 2022 regular council meeting be rescheduled to start at 4 p.m. I'll ask, well, I guess I would move my own motion, so I will move it. If that's appropriate, you can correct me if I'm wrong. Ms. Kenny, is that appropriate?
That is appropriate.
Thank you. And I'll ask for a seconder. Seconded by Councillor Wallace. And just because it is my motion, I'm going to speak to it first. This is to ensure that all members of council will be able to attend these meetings in the first bit before we return to our in-person meetings in January. So I'll ask if anybody has any discussion about this motion. Not seeing any discussion, I'm going to call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? I don't see anybody opposed, so it's unanimous. Final piece of business today is there's a piece of correspondence. It's Adoption Awareness Month. I just wanted to ask if anybody wanted to do anything with that or just receive it. I guess we just receive it for information, sorry, as this is a proclamation. But I will go over to Councillor Albrecht.
Yeah, I was just going to move receipt for information, refer to staff.
Great. So I don't think we need to do any action then. Great. So we are going to now do a motion to hold a closed meeting, and I do have to read this out, I believe. Is that correct, Ms. Kenny?
That is correct, Mayor Pahal.
Thank you very much. So I'm just going to lower Councillor Albrecht's hand there. So that the council meeting immediately following this meeting be closed to the public as the subject matter being considered relates to items which comply with the following closed meeting criteria specified in Section 90 of the Community Charter. Section 1E, the acquisition, deposition, or expropriation of land or improvements if the council considers that disclosure could reasonably be expected to harm the interests of the municipality. 1K, negotiations and related discussions respecting the proposed provision of a municipal service that are in their preliminary stages and that, in the view of the council, could reasonably be expected to harm the interests of the municipality if they were held in public. So a mover. Moved by Councillor Albrecht, seconded by Councillor Mack. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, I'll call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? It's unanimous. So the final motion is that the meeting be adjourned. Is there a mover? Councillor James, seconded by Councillor Mack. You don't need to vote on that. So we'll just be done. And we can turn off the recording, Ms. Kenny. And